Disclaimer: this show is not for the faint of heart or the easily offended. The views expressed here are that of the show hosts only, and not their wives, girlfriends, husbands, boyfriends, polygamous partners, employers, music artists, businesses, or anyone other than the Cognitive Dissolutions podcasters. The explicit tag is there for a good reason. Please proceed with caution.
Every one of us will have to decide whether or not we want to keep this great republic or whether we're willing to sacrifice it and surrender it to tyranny.
Hey everybody, Joel here. I just want to say, I think I can speak for everybody in the podcast that we're grieving tonight. I think we're all experiencing a plethora of different emotions, and I can speak for myself, and I would assume for my fellow co-hosts that I don't feel any obligation to hold back what I'm feeling right now based on what happened today in Paris, and just be warned that this is an emotional experience. It's something that I do want to have documented for my own reasons. I don't want to forget when these things happen what it felt like on those nights like September 11, nights that we've experienced way too much of lately. And tonight's podcast, I think, is going to represent a lot of the feelings that we have fresh when that wound first occurs. And here we go.
Well said, Joel. John, you have anything before we get started you want to add?
I'm just saying the music in SimCity went very well with that. And that's not a joke.
I wish we could add that. All right, so welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Cognitive Dissolutions podcast, where we address the current issues of today with brash humor, skepticism, or aggression to invoke critical thinking in the masses. We take everyone's tightly held beliefs, mash them up with current events, politics, religion, and then throw them to the fires of skepticism. We magnify the so-called logic and then blow them all up. There is no green zone of safety for a lack of critical thinking here. This is episode number 4. Your co-hosts today are Joel, John, and Al, and we are your tormentors. Before we begin, all of us at the Cognitive Dissolutions podcast crew would like to send out a heartfelt and sincere thank you and appreciation to all the veterans. The service and sacrifice that you and your families have made can never be fully understood by those who haven't endured it. Having said that, we'd still like to thank and show, or at least attempt to show, our continued support. You're always appreciated by our cast members, as well as the loss that has been felt today with our brothers and sisters over in Paris. Our thoughts, hope, and in John's case, prayers are with you. And we'll always be here to support you. John, Joel, how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing pretty okay until, I'm actually kind of pissed off. I'm going to dispense with the pleasantries, and obviously anger is kind of a secondary emotion to what's going on deep, but yeah, I'm ready to get some things off my chest. John, how are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm ready to be roasted.
I don't think that's going to happen today, in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, Al, how's it going with you, man?
Well, I was doing pretty good. A little pissed off. I'm feeling it today. I've got some serious empathy going on for the folks over in France right now. And I I empathize with not only the victims but also the people that are perpetrating these crimes on two different levels, and I don't want those to be confused with each other. You know, I've got some serious anger, you know, some impact from remembering 9/11. So, yeah.
Sure. Hey, in that same vein, I do want to say I'm not, I never served in the military, but you two have, and I just want to kind of send out my thanks as a full-time civilian for my entire life. Thanks for you guys to do what you do, and I know it's a lot of hard work, and any time your lives can be in danger, and I appreciate what you've done, what you continue to do on some, I know you're in varying spots, each of you, but thank you.
Yeah, that's why we did it, man.
Absolutely. We appreciate the sentiment, and I know John does, and I certainly do appreciate the opportunity to serve the people. So certainly.
All right, well, we can jump into this a little bit. Al, do you want to set this up so, just for later on down the road, you just got a way about describing scenarios. Al, can you set up what happened today in Paris a little bit for us?
Well, there were some protests that were going on. Syrian refugees were having a protest about some of the inadequacies of how they were being assisted or handled, and a group of individuals hiding amongst the refugees began attacking Parisians, shooting and throwing grenades, blowing up the area, and taking hostages. And initially, at the beginning part of the day, there were 40 killed and 100 hostages, and by the end of the day, 30 more hostages were executed. It's pretty fucked up.
Now there's so much information coming in from so many different places right now. I mean, we are hearing numbers that talk about hundreds of people ultimately at the end of the day, with 4 separate attacks on some level, bombing at a soccer, or as they might call it, football stadium. Something the most the one that took the most lives is something that hits pretty close home to me. At a live concert, rock and roll concert, very 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 good band. Not that necessarily plays into adding to the tragedy, but it's hard not to start doing the math in your head and asking yourself, you got this logical understanding that the chances of being killed in a terrorist attack are close to nil, but you see this and you can't help but start counting on your fingers and wondering, when it's going to happen, when the next thing's going to happen. Is it going to be you involved or your family? It's overwhelming when these things are fresh like this, because I just, I can't not think about my family being caught up in something like that, and just the sheer horror of a situation like that is, I don't know. I wouldn't wish it upon the people that are doing it, so certainly wouldn't wish it upon my loved ones.
I agree fully. John, what's your take? Do you have any input on it, or is this not really a topic you wanted to address at this point?
Give me a few minutes.
Okay.
Let me think on it some more.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely a sore subject. It's got a lot of baggage already attached to it. There's the attackers at this point have self-identified themselves as members of ISIS, as members of Muslim Brotherhoods, and Al Qaeda. So, I mean, we've got 4 to 5 different groups all participated in what appear to be very coordinated, very direct attacks on innocent lives. One of the individuals is reportedly is yelling, "This is for Syria," in French and other languages. I have yet to confirm whether or not that's true, but at this point it wouldn't surprise me. But to remain skeptical, I have to step back and go, is that actually what was said? But there are a lot of innocents that have been impacted by this. And
I think it bears mentioning that this really has the, again, potential of galvanizing the war machine, and actually I can't even imagine a scenario in which it could be worse, but making it worse by, in effect, forcing the hand of certain governments to behave far more aggressively towards, I guess, just generally speaking, people of that war-torn area of Syria and Iraq and so on. And I can't help but be a little scared that a tactic like this, it does instill fear. It absolutely works. Terrorism works. But it never gets the result that I can imagine if they feel that these people, these groups, ISIS, Al Qaeda, so on, if they feel like that they're trying to improve their situation in some fashion, improve, stop intervention, colonial intervention, whatever whatever is being said. This does nothing to help anyone. This galvanizes the machine. This creates an opportunity for more war, more death, more killing of their families and ours. I hope it stops.
It does, but you also have the counter to that of a people in a war-torn country fleeing that war-torn country, looking for a safe place to hide or be peaceful. But there are those amongst them that also go, we've had a war-torn country, it's time to bring the fight to their doorstep, like we do in our combat tactics. When 9/11 was hit, when the trade towers were hit on 9/11, we searched and hunted down the people that perpetrated that, as well as the people that assisted in the perpetration. And the thing is to make it so terrible a cost to do something like that they never want to do it again. Well, you find that also on the other side. People in those cities that may not have had any issue with any of the countries involved have a family member hit by one of our bombs, and they become a galvanized enemy after that moment. And they take the same course of action of retaliation.
Okay, so I'm gonna chime in now.
Please.
So what we've got going on here is, okay, so let's talk about institutionalization for a minute. Some people have argued that religion is nothing more than institutionalized therapy. With that being said, I also view religion as a form of government. Where there isn't government, there is religion, and religion governs. That's the whole purpose behind it. So when you throw the notion that there are bullies everywhere into that particular topic of conversation, then it becomes apparent rather quickly that bullying can become institutionalized. And I'm not talking about religion in general. but I am talking about specific individuals, specific sects, specific doctrines within a religion, and none of them are free of this. All of them have had bullies at one point or another. Even Judaism, which is relatively benign at this point in its history, at one time ravaged the entire Gaza Strip. It ravaged the entire Levantine region, which is arguably where all of this came from in the first place. The bullying is the problem. It's not the religion, not the feelings, not the emotions. It's the bullying. It's what you do with the emotions. When you are persecuted for whatever reason, be it economic or social or religious, whatever the reason is, when you are bullied, you feel as if you need to react. You need to do something. Well, reacting in a constructive fashion is helpful. Reacting in a destructive fashion is not. It's the same problem that we have in our high schools and junior high schools. People who react destructively become the bullies. When you institutionalize that bullying behavior, you have ISIS, Al-Qaeda. You have the Spanish Inquisition. You have all kinds of problems. And I'm not entirely sure how you solve that.
Well, do you also have, I hesitate to bring this into it, but I think it's safe to say that we have bullies that we're paying. I mean, and I don't mean any kind of conspiracy theory. I mean, our government and agents therein, they don't necessarily have peace in mind. I think that's pretty clear. That's not their goal. Their goal isn't the one thing that they should be striving for. It's not even on the list. So we certainly have bullies on both sides. And if you don't mind me taking a little bit longer than I might normally in a particular segment, I just want to kind of put out there too that you brought up a good point. Your output to a stressor, granted these are severe stressors, ultimately is a choice. And you have a choice between creation and destruction. I can't even imagine where we would be in society today if even a slightly larger percentage, because it's really ridiculously low right now, made the choice that they were going to rise above rather than sink to the depths of hell in war and create and make it so that they, through innovation and through just being thoughtful, good people, could create a society in which it can't be penetrated by outside influences in a destructive fashion. Just imagine if we were creating art, technology, for the sole purpose of bettering our lives, the lives of our family, instead of wasting all this energy hating other fucking people and killing other people. For what? We can apply as much reason to this as we want to, but ultimately it's a fucking choice that a whole bunch of people are making. And that's what I just can't understand. Why choose to kill? Why choose to destroy? Why?
That's what they were educated to do.
I get it.
And in some respects, it's something that all cultures are educated to do as part of a mammalian response. A great number of people can't step back and go, what is the logical viewpoint in this? You know, the essential Spock thing. We are human beings that emotion and emotional impact is a big part of our lives, regardless of who we are. So when an attack like this happens, your mirror neurons and your empathetic responses go, that's not fucking right. We need to do something about it. And the first instinct is to eliminate the threat. And how do you eliminate a threat that is using violence on people? Most people's reaction is kill it.
Well, yeah, the only way you can fight violence is with violence. Absolutely, I agree with that.
Hold on. I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying, because you just said the only way to fight violence is with violence. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So there's no other method in which we can combat violence.
Not once it's presented to you. The only way to combat violence is to prevent it in the first place. If violence is already presented to you, you have no choice. You have no other recourse but to respond in kind. Not necessarily to respond greater than, but to at least respond in kind.
But we know violence is going to happen. We know that there's severe unrest in that area and all over the world. We know that before. We knew that before tonight. We knew that before Paris, and we didn't do anything that could actually mitigate this cycle. We have not been doing anything. We've not been creating. All we've been doing is destroying.
Well, again,
outliers accepted. Just to be clear there.
No, I get it. You know, like I said, in the absence of an alternative, in the absence of peace, once peace is broken, it's broken. You must respond, and you must respond in kind. Before that happens, though, there are steps you can take. For example, I don't know that either of you would remember, but back in the 80s there was a little to-do in Afghanistan. The Russians invaded, and we funded the Taliban. Yeah, we funded the Taliban, and we educated the Taliban.
A buddy of mine was a captain with the Russian reserves in that conflict.
Oh, I would love to be a fly on the wall while he tells his stories.
Oh, there are some brutal fucking stories, I'll tell you.
But here's the thing about that little endeavor. We didn't send a single troop over there. We sent buckets of cash over there. We sent tons of materiel over there. We gave the Taliban everything that they needed to kick Russia out.
Well, we also gave them training. We provided CIA-sponsored mercs to train them.
Absolutely, but no boots on the ground, no soldiers on the ground. Training, yes. Training,
not in any official capacity.
A military consultant or a military contractor is a boot. It's not on the books boot, but it's a boot nonetheless.
Granted. But here's where I was going with that. Here's where I was going with that. So when that thing was all said and done, okay, we had sent billions of dollars worth of material and personnel over there in order to fund, outfit, and train these people. When it was all said and done, when Russia left, the proper response would have been to educate, to inform, to foster a peaceful society. Instead, we abandoned ship. We called it mission accomplished, and we walked away. The guy who did this whole thing, he was a Texas senator. They made a movie about him. Charlie Wilson, that was his name. Congressman Charles Wilson. He said he wanted, after spending $80 billion, I don't know if that figure is correct, but after sending billions of dollars over there, he asked for something like $2 or $3 million, million with an M, to build a few schools and to do the right thing, to foster a society of peace. And he was rejected. After spending billions of dollars, they wouldn't foot enough for a couple of damn schools. And he gave a quote, something I don't remember the exact quote, but I remember the sentiment of it. Next time, build the fucking school.
Great quote.
That was what he took away from that exercise. That was what he took away from his great success. And he pretty much did it single-handedly. He had a couple of friends. He had a guy in the CIA that was helping him out. But he did all of that himself, and he put his life on the line. He put his career on the line. He didn't have a family, but he put his life on the line to get that done. And all he took away from it was, next time, build the fucking school. And what have we done in Iraq? We built a few schools. We rebuilt the city of Baghdad several times, but we walked away too soon. We didn't have our eyes open long enough to listen to our troops on the ground when they said, hey, we're not being attacked by bad guys. We're being attacked by super bad guys. These are not locals doing this. These are people coming from Jordan, from Syria, from all over the friggin' place. Nobody figured out that it was ISIS playing around with American troops up there that whole time. Nobody figured it out until it was too late, until we had left. And after we left, they walked right in. They came out of whatever hole they were in and just took over. And that is how guerrilla warfare works. If you were to ask George Washington to analyze what ISIS did in 2014, he would call it a masterstroke. He would call it genius. You want to talk about bullies? Let's talk about revolutionaries. What these people want is their own country, and they want to own it for themselves. They think they are a part of something big. They don't know who's pulling their strings. They don't care who's pulling their strings. They're fired up. That is their deal. The only way to combat that, the only way to fight that, is with education. Once violence is already struck, it's too late.
I think that we've got a situation where if we have $1 and we're spending 99.9999 cents on havoc, on war, we're not doing it right. That's not the correct proportion. I do agree to some extent that a response of violence is necessary to a violent act, but you have to proportion that response and have a goal. I feel like to some extent we're fighting an enemy whose goals aren't really of this world in those fighters. We're fighting an ideology that is counter to education. It is exactly antithetical to reason and peace. I'm struggling with this. I don't want to get too much into the Islamic stuff, but it's something. It is definitely a catalyst, and we have to call it a part of this, even if we're trying to be PC, which I'm not. I'm trying to be open-minded and see it for what it is. But you have an ideology there. Go ahead.
Call it what it is. You want to call it what it is, let's call it what it is. 500 years ago, you'd have been saying the same thing about Christians. During the Protestant Revolution, the 100 Years' War, okay? You would have said the exact same thing.
I still say it about Christians. They're just in Africa right now.
And I won't disagree with you. But the point, okay, so, and I'm not giving them any excuses. Don't take this to mean that I'm giving them an excuse. But right now, Islam is going through their Protestant Reformation, if you want to call it that. And we really don't know what direction it's going to go. Okay? These ISIS creeps are, in my opinion, just as extreme as the Protestants were in the 1500s. They're taking their ideology in a direction that is contrary to what their religion actually teaches. These people are bombing
I don't know about
their
that.
own. Well, no, check this out. These people are bombing their own places of worship. These people are killing members of their own religion. ISIS is doing things that are contrary to the rules and regulations of their religion. They are killing their own.
It depends on which sect, because if you're Sunni, Shia, etc., if you read those interpretations, anybody that's not a follower of your sect is an infidel.
That's not even close Okay, so you got the Quran and then you got the Hadith. Okay, you got the Quran that is the words of Muhammad, supposedly the transcribed vision of Muhammad, and then you've got the Hadith.
Which they've tested and found that it was around about 20 years before he was born to 100 years before he was born. So he didn't write it.
Tomato, tomato. Either way, it's
ninjas.
The book. Okay, ninjas. Yeah, exactly. Angels. I don't know. The Quran is the book on which Islam is based. The Quran, no less than 18 times that I can think of off the top of my head, and I can read a few of them to you if you want, explicitly forbids the killing of Muslims. Do not kill your own. 18 times.
It says that, but the way the way the Quran is worded is that any subsequent passages supersede the previous passages. And in the subsequent passages, it says you can kill Muslims if they don't follow your tenets, your mosque, your imam.
I'm not aware of that. The Quran doesn't make any statements at all as to structure. It only says you will follow God. And, oh, by the way, Muhammad is the representative. That's a pretty basic tenet of the entirety of the Quran. But anyway, the Hadith is a completely different set of writings. And what you're talking about comes from the Hadith. The Hadith is all the writings that have come since. Anything and everything that any and every commentator has had anything to say about Muhammad's ideals. Okay? So you've got a principle, you've got a set of ideals, and then you've got people expounding on it. Well, for 1,500 years, people have been expounding on this thing. So you're going to have a lot of different opinions about things. And where two people disagree, that's where you get two sects. And of course, those two sects are going to disagree sometimes violently. Unfortunately, in the Middle East, you're looking at a combination of a strictural religion combined with a culture that is designed around vendetta.
I won't disagree with that.
Arab culture is rooted in vendetta. So you've got 1,000-year-old wars and disputes over really the most trifling of things. But as soon as somebody gets killed, somebody else gets killed, somebody steals something, something happens, somebody beats you up, it doesn't matter. That gives them one more reason not to like you. When you add Western civilization to that, when you add Christianity in particular to that, one of the things in Islam that is absolutely anathema, one of those things that is absolutely forbidden, is to have an incarnation, either an idol, to consider a book to be godly or even divine, to claim that you are an angel, to claim that you are God. Okay, so when a Christian comes up and says, I believe that God walked the earth, or that I am God, or that Jesus was God, that guy just said something that absolutely boils in Muslims' blood, and I can understand why.
Well, I mean, you've got the other side of it, on the Christian side of it, where Christians are getting butthurt over Starbucks cups.
Granted, yeah, I don't give a shit about a damn cup, but it's but what I'm getting at here is the compounded problem of being butthurt, as you put it. And it's a culture of woundedness that compounds itself until you come to a point where people are not just throwing blows, they're not just yelling at each other, they're not just punching each other, but they're shooting bullets at each other. And it's only going to get worse unless you educate people. Now, there are millions of peaceful Muslims out there. Millions, probably billions, quite frankly. Just like there are probably a billion peaceful Christians out there. But there are those Christians who want to destroy Planned Parenthood. There are those Christians who want to kill abortion doctors. There are those Christians who feel that violence is a necessity. So, and quite frankly, there are more than just a few atheists out there that are crazy too. It's not endemic to religion. It's not a religion thing. It's a human nature thing. When you're given no other option but violence, human nature dictates that the cornered will fight.
I don't disagree with much of what you're saying, but the stakes change so dramatically when you add this wild card of this belief system that you're mandated on some level through some mechanism that I honestly don't understand, whether, whatever religion you want to talk about to some extent, but I think it's not unfair to say that there are certain belief structures that tend more towards violence than others. I mean, if you're Jainist, it's like Sam Harris often says, an extreme Jainist is not going. They're going to try and hurt people less because that's what their whole belief system is around. They're gonna avoid an ant on the ground, so
unless they feel as if that structure is in jeopardy.
And I understand that, but the wild card that I haven't really gotten to yet is that the payoff, the way you succeed, what you get out of it, it happens after death. When you have that concept, all fucking bets are off. There's no mutually assured destruction because the goal, to a greater extent, of some of these people is their own destruction. How do you deter that when that's your belief system? That you're not going to receive anything out of this life? That the only good that you're ever going to experience is in some eternal bliss after, the veil of death lowers. What do you do to reason with someone like that?
Unfortunately, that is a very dominant notion in most religions. And quite frankly, I disagree with it. I know plenty of Christians who disagree with it. I know a few Muslims who disagree with it. I don't know a whole lot of Muslims. That's why I say a few. I only know maybe a dozen of them. But, personally, intimately, I know them. When it comes, not intimately like that. Get your mind out of the gutter, Al.
Damn it.
Quit being a racist, Al.
What does race have to do with it?
Muslims not
It doesn't
a race.
matter. Al's a racist. That's just a fact.
You had to throw it out there, didn't you?
Apparently that's been established. Al's a fucking racist. God damn it. Never going to live that shit down.
The really funny part is that you respond to it exactly the same way every time.
Yeah, fucking mix it up a little, buddy. Not a very creative racist.
Yeah, Joel, you bring up a very good point. When someone's personal focus, when someone's personal objectives are not focused on the here and now, they're focused on some future event, some after death event, whichever the case may be. If you're not focused on the here and now and trying to live from one day to the next and just trying to survive and be the person that you're intended to be, I have to question your motives. And I'm the same way with capitalists. I'm the same way with industrialists. I'm the same way with people in government. If you think that you're going to survive to see the fruits of your labor, you're wrong. And to any Jew or Christian or even Muslim out there, I would point them to, there are a couple of books in the Bible, in particular Ecclesiastes. If you've ever looked at the Ecclesiastes, man, there is no more depressing book anywhere in the universe. But it's absolutely true.
I would argue that. I find Numbers pretty fucking disturbing.
Disturbing, yes.
Deuteronomy's pretty fucking low, too.
Sure.
Revelation isn't a bowl of cherries either.
The book Ecclesiastes is all about your life is meaningless. Everything you do is meaningless. The only meaning that you have is in doing what is right. That is the whole point of that entire book.
Well, and I gotta say, I don't necessarily disagree with that sentiment.
But very few people read it. If you were to ask a Christian,
hold on, what's Al going on here? Al, did Al fucking lose it?
I thought it was funny, just considering your
using male semen in their latte.
Yeah, I may just have to just use my voice of derision and go, whatever, Al.
Maybe you are a racist. I don't know.
All I know is he's got his hand on that switch that puts us to the other rail pretty fucking quick.
Oh.
The real problem here, especially with ISIS and these people that are going out and killing people, the real problem here is not that they believe they're going to get rewards in the afterlife. That's not the problem. The problem is the person who's telling them that. We need to find that guy. We need to target.
Aren't those both fucking problems?
No, not necessarily. The people doing the violence are not necessarily the problem. And 90% of the time when I was overseas,
they both problems. They're both problems, right? I mean, people are making these choices. We've talked about in past podcasts that it's not about when we were talking about inner city kids that it was it's ultimately their choice. It's you can't blame it all on background and social parameters or what have you. That at the end of the day, it's a person's choice to hold up a liquor store or to blow themselves up in a suicide bomb mission, or something along those lines. It is a choice of an individual. Indoctrination is a powerful fucking thing. Don't get me wrong, but these are both things that you got to wonder. I mean, how powerful is this ideology that it can turn somebody into something like that? I mean, even the ideology of capitalism is it turns people into that, but they're still responsible for their actions.
Yeah, I'm dealing with that right now. But we're not going to talk about that. So, the choice, you're absolutely correct. And I will not disagree because, I'm quite frankly, that was my whole point last show. The choice is still there, but the choice is only valid if you know it is there.
I know we don't know what we don't know, and I think you can apply that to some scenarios that go on to last week's topic as far as,
sure.
On the home front. You don't know what you don't know. I get it, and that's a cultural failing. That is truly a pandemic. Ignorance is a pandemic situation, and that's what we need to be fighting with. We need to be fighting with knowledge. We need to be fighting with information. We need to set up like I mentioned before, a certain understood level at which we can all accept we're not going to go below this. We're not going to go into the basement. We're not going to go into the pit of hell and make war. That's what we need to establish in this world. And I know you guys know me and my rose-colored glasses as far as how I think things can be, but education, creation of art, technology, opportunity, that's how we fight this. Absolutely. I won't disagree. Stop spending 99.999 cents on the fucking F-22 or more bombs, more fucking guns, more terrorist camps, or whatever. You got to have some of that. Apparently, you got to have some of that to keep people honest. But you can't throw everything in there. You can't put them all in every fucking time. You got to save some for the future, for the next couple of rounds down the way. Absolutely. I'm getting pissed, sorry.
You have every right to be pissed.
Just tired of seeing fucking beautiful people on all sides of this conflict just fucking eradicated for no fucking reason. There's no reason for it. Are there reasons that people are fighting? Yes. But there's no reason that the response has to be what it is. It can be creative. It can be so much. It just doesn't have to be this way. This is a fucking choice on every single one of our parts. It's a choice on our choice is to tell our government, no, we need to fucking help people. We don't need to plant our flag in as many fucking places as possible and create these awful situations by backing one group, then realizing, oh shit, they're out of control, then backing and playing this fucking shell game all the time. That needs to stop. That needs to end. We need to be responsible for our government and telling them we're not going to put up with that as the people that pay them, as the people they're fucking supposed to be representing. I am ashamed to have my name on some of the bullets that we fired at other people, because my name is on that bullet.
Yeah. You are justified in your anger.
And believe me, if anybody understands that, it's both John and I.
I hear you.
We understand, but we also understand that, and coming from the warrior culture, bullies don't listen to reason.
Nope.
Bullies don't listen to idealism. They listen to the fist and the boot.
And I'm holding two thoughts at the same time here. I think that of course is true, but I also think that it is true that you don't have to go all in with that. You don't have to do that. That's not that you can save some. You can because peace. Let's face it, peace is hard earned. If there's anything on this fucking planet that's hard earned, it's peace, and it's an investment over centuries. We're not making that investment. We're not putting anything into that in any meaningful way. And somebody has to step up and do that. We have to figure out a way to get these refugees something approaching a tolerant existence and something approaching opportunity. Otherwise, we're just going to be. We have the fucking resources on this planet for every single 7 point whatever billion of us to live a pretty fucking comfortable life. We create this false scarcity in this system that we have, and that's what's holding this whole fucking thing back.
Well, honestly, it's not the refugees that are legitimate refugees that are the problem. It's the ones hiding in those groups that are the problem.
You bet your ass we're turning some of those refugees, when they come here and they see a cold shoulder, or go to Europe and they see a cold shoulder, and sometimes in violent ways, you think that's not changing some of their minds to be like, well, fuck this? And I'm not giving them an excuse. I'm just saying we are changing minds. We are changing minds by the way we treat these people. And we're not any better. I mean, our bullies are doing the same thing. You know, the bullies on the good side are still fucking bullies. There's land all over this world. There's resources
water all over this world.
For 7 point something billion people. There's plenty of fucking land to go around. Okay? There's plenty of fucking resources to go around. We have to continue with technology to assure that that's the case. But we can't keep allowing this false market of intended scarcity on certain things that we all need to survive, so that a few people can get fucking rich, or a few people can lord that over many, that control. Go ahead, guys. Out of gas.
I get it, man. You're, yeah.
You have a justified anger, and you've made some very valid points. I don't think you're going to find a disagreement here.
No.
I think the disagreement is going to be on the tactics on how we accomplish that. And unfortunately, I don't think we're all going to see eye to eye on it.
Well, I mean, let's just can we have a consensus about one thing, that in trying to invest in love is a worthwhile endeavor. When you're constantly seeing red. And you're constantly seeing red. Yeah, exactly. But it's not happening, man. So that's a tactic. Invest something in love. Invest something in humanity. Not in death. Invest in life. We're not doing that. Nobody's doing that.
Here's the thing. There are plenty of people doing that. There are plenty of people doing that. You may not disagree. You may disagree with the organization that they represent.
I am talking about the top, the people at the top when I say that. I certainly on an individual level. Go ahead.
We tried that in Africa. We tried approaching things with love, and here's how it turned out. There were those individuals who took that as a weakness and used it against us. So
yeah, we have to be strong. We still have to be strong.
We're right back to square one. Okay, so when education fails and someone presents you with violence, you have to respond with violence. So when we send missionaries, whether they're with the Christian Church, the Church in Scientology, or whether they're from the humanists, it doesn't matter. They're missionaries. They're philanthropists. When we send them over there, and the local warlord confiscates everything and shoots the people we're there to feed, how do you respond to that? My response to that is send a couple of planes over there, send a couple of dozen troops over there, kick this fucker in the ass, and present those people with a decent government. But that's not the response that we're allowed to give, because the world has rules too. We're not allowed to interfere. So in the absence of the ability to create love, the only thing we can do is respond when it is violated. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I don't think love is something that's created. I think it's there in the overwhelming majority of people. It's there. It's just been so depressed and dampened that it doesn't have a fertile soil in which to grow. And
well, again, even those warlords, even ISIS, even ISIS members have plenty of love in them. They love their neighbors the same as the next guy. The problem is when somebody tells them, gives them some kind of definition as to who their neighbor is. It's just a little bit of confusion about who they are supposed to be loving. In a local warlord's case, he's going to love his son, who's probably going to be his successor. He's going to love that guy more than the next guy. So there's plenty of love going on there. It's just a question of how do you get that guy to understand that his selfish ways are destroying his country.
Well, I don't think the correct way to get him to understand that he shouldn't destroy his country is by us destroying the country.
Oh no, not to destroy the country. I'm talking about when I say send a couple of dozen troops in there, I'm talking about what we tried to do in Somalia, for example. Okay, you guys remember Somalia?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
So
yeah.
I don't remember being there because I never was, but I remember the whole history of it. Yeah.
Yeah, neither was I either. But if you've seen Black Hawk Down, you got a decent idea of what happened. The intent there was to free the country, was to remove a Saddam Hussein, remove a Hitler from power, and it eventually worked. It took 20 years, but it eventually worked. And in that particular case, that incident, the Black Hawk Down thing, was a failure on our part. But the entire plan, the entire tactic, ended up being a success, a limited success, but a success nonetheless. That warlord was removed, was replaced by another one. But hey, can't win them all, right?
Well, but the power that the warlords, or as we were referring to them earlier in the podcast, bullies. The problem, the way they derive their power is through their controlling of resources.
Absolutely.
Whatever that might be. And it's the same thing here. The powerful have the resources, the weak do not. And so it all comes down to resources. And the only way that we can change that, the only thing that I can think of that will create a scenario in which hoarding resources is just not that fucking important anymore, the only antithesis to that is love. On all kinds of levels, right? So we need to, because we're contributing to this. We are hoarding resources too in our society for the entire world. Everybody's doing it. That's what capitalism is. It's getting resources and then funneling them out in a way that works good for the person that has the resources. It's the whole basis of it. Is that reasonable? Can you guys accept that premise?
I think Adam Smith would disagree, but I'll let you go with that one. Go ahead.
Well, please give me a counter argument so that we can unpack this a little bit. Or a counter perspective maybe would be the better term there.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know that I have a counter perspective. I'm just saying that Adam Smith, the guy who wrote the book on capitalism, I think he would disagree with your assessment. I think he would say that I think he would say that capitalism is all about progress. It's all about funneling the resources to the people who are making things happen.
Well, that's not seemed to have been the result.
No? We've funneled resources into the United States for a little over 100 years now. And I think we've done a pretty good job of progressing the sciences, technology, even society to a limited degree, with the last 30 years being the obvious exception.
Well, but you know what seems to be the catalyst to a lot of the progress, be it medicine, technology, all of that stuff. The primary objective to any fundamental technology was originally a war-based concept, not across the board, but generally speaking, I think that happens quite a bit.
With the purpose of funneling more resources toward the people who feel they are doing the most good. Yeah.
Can you explain that a little more? Because so you're saying that the objective of the system itself is to do that, or the objective of the people that control the system is to do that?
I'm going to say yes to that, to both. Okay, so human nature dictates that we're always going to feel that we are right. It's just the way we are. Whatever we reason out in our heads makes sense to us, and we can't really expect somebody else to understand it until they do. So as long as we feel that we are correct, if we have any advantage at all, we are going to defend our own correctness. We are going to defend our way of thought. So when it comes to the national level, the nation that has not just the most resources, but the most resources to begin with, is going to be the one that forwards its own ideals. In the case of America, when we were colonies, we had resources, but we didn't know what to do with them. Once we did our Manifest Destiny thing, and we had, From Sea to Shining Sea and all that other patriotic bullshit, once we figured out our country, we figured out that we had this enormous mound of resources, and we figured out what to do with it. That's what separated us from the rest of the world. That's what put us on top of the food chain for almost 100 years, was the fact that we had the resources, we knew what to do with them, and we understood that the more resources we bring to ourselves, the more we can spend on making things happen. I'm being very general. I'm not
Sure.
I'm trying not to use any specific examples, but the nuclear bomb is a good example. The nuclear bomb, like you said, started as a weapon. But when was the last time one was detonated? 1945. So when it was created was the last time it was used. Since then, it has known nothing but peaceful purposes. Even the Cold War can be argued as a peaceful purpose for nuclear weapons. It was a deterrent. As soon as an enemy got hold of the technology, we started the buildup, and it was a deterrent. That is a peaceful purpose. Nobody fired a weapon, so it was not a weapon. It is a weapon that is not actually used. A firearm in your hand or in your pocket or even in your house is not a weapon unless you fire it. Until you fire it, it's a deterrent.
But what we also had is two superpowers that for the most part understood that this life is important. That's what the deterrent was because people didn't want to die.
See,
we're not facing that enemy anymore. That's not the enemy that we're facing.
From a capitalistic point of view, I would say that both sides understood that mutually insured destruction would not forward the species. And because they understood that, they were unwilling to use the weapons at hand.
I don't disagree with that. But you know me. What I'm going to say is that's not good enough. That's, you know me by now. That's where I am. That's not good enough.
You want an end to the violence. You want an end to all war. You want what everyone wants. And I'm going to tell you right now, brother, it ain't going to happen ever. Humanity is not going to do that.
Be that as it may, I'm not looking for a 100% victory. I'm looking for as we've mentioned before, the moral arc towards justice. I'm looking for incremental progress. I'm looking for just a little bit more love each day, and I definitely feel like we are just dropping down into the valley as the days go by in this political landscape that we have.
Will you accept a 99.9% success in the love category? Because 100 people died in Paris. In the last 10 years, okay, let's say in the last 15 years, maybe 30,000, 50,000, let's say, for the sake of argument, let's make it high. Let's say 100,000 people have died because of terrorist attacks in the last 15 or 20 years. That's a really high number. I don't think it's much higher than probably 50 or 60,000. Let's include the Iraq War in that. Let's just call it 100,000 deaths. When you compare that to the human population, it's a drop in the bucket. Everybody else who did not die, everybody else who did not fire a bullet, was exercising a semblance of love. Maybe not in their words, but at least in their actions.
Yeah. I mean, the data does support your assertion. I mean, we are a less violent world overall than we've ever been. And yeah, I'm pretty emotional at the moment. It's hard not to sort of put a face on this stuff right now.
Well, sometimes you don't want to see her face. You just want the plastic bag or the paper bag over her head. I'm just saying.
My face? Fuck that. My face is awesome. It's like the only fucking awesome part of me.
I said her face, not your face.
Her face. No.
Well,
dude, every woman's beautiful, man. Haven't you read that?
That is not fucking true. Have you seen a lot of women?
I've seen a lot of women.
Some of them look like they fell out of the ugly tree, hit every branch on the way down, the fucker slammed them into the ground after it dropped.
Well, yeah, I suppose that's true. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Love. We're like just a fucking love cannon here.
Love cannon. Wow.
I think that is a little bit reaching.
Oh, no, I meant canon as in like a religious text, you know.
Oh, I see.
No,
I thought you were going for...
I didn't. Oh, I was going for it. I went for it.
I thought you were going for Kiss and their love gun. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'd just like to point out that Kiss and their love gun, that wasn't a gun.
I understand that.
like in the movie Private Parts. Blank a doodle doo. Fill in the blank. Oh, fuck.
All right, so we've beaten this episode to death, especially this topic, pun intended. And
with passion.
With passion.
Fucking vomit.
Have you ever wondered if maybe Passion of the Christ was like the sex scene before the torture? No?
No.
Awkward.
A little bit.
So anyway.
So I think the moral of all of this is we can blame everything on Genghis Khan. He's the one that just just eradicated the Arabian Peninsula, and when they were developing algebra, he's trying to set them all back. They were doing pretty good before that.
Okay.
Genghis Khan, fuck you.
Shit.
I think I would blame the Crusades before I blame Genghis Khan, but okay.
I was really hoping we'd go out on Genghis Khan, fuck you.
Don't think you can change me.